I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at SpencerFernando.com. Welcome back to the show, Spencer.
Good to be here.
Spencer, is this another Shades of SNC Lavalin where perhaps there was government interference with the now staying of breach of trust charges against Vice Admiral Mark Norman, who is the second highest person in the Canadian Armed Forces? What's behind that? Was there more political subterfuge behind the scenes that they don't want us to know?
Yeah, it really looks like it. It looks like they tried to, punish him. After they took power, I guess they were feeling overly confident, and they thought he was the guy who leaked something, and they wanted to punish him. And it looks like really they were trying to cover up for what seems like their own shady dealings with the contract they wanted to cancel and give to liberal-connected people, and then they were exposed, and so couldn't do that. And so they tried to punish him, tried to get the RCMP to do it. And then all of a sudden, I mean, again, they've said there's the prosecution service is independent, which maybe they are, but the problem is the timing is very interesting. Just when this looks like it's going to become a huge issue for the Liberals as the election gets closer, the case is dropped all of a sudden. So I think this has really shaken a lot of people's faith that was already shaken after the SNC Lavalin controversy.
Well, it turns out that they decided to drop charges because of information provided by his all-female defense team. They like to point that out, and that nobody had disrespected them during this process. A little dig, perhaps, at the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah.
Jason Kenney was the, I think, former defense minister who got the ball rolling on the procurement of a new supply ship for the Canadian Navy because the current ship, the Provider, is an ancient old piece of floating junk. I mean, shouldn't our Navy have something that works right and is modern?
You'd think so, but I mean, Canada's armed forces are barely a force and barely armed. So, if you look at the whole procurement thing is a mess. On this particular issue, they had a contract that was already ready to go, and it looks like the Liberals wanted to delay it, most likely cancel it, and give it to a group more connected to their friends. And when that was exposed, they weren't able to go ahead and do it. But just the fact that was even happening, that's part of the reason why the military and the armed forces are in such trouble, because the process is extremely politicized, very corrupt, very slow. And it looks like people of good conscience, people like Norman, who try to do the right thing, I mean, they get punished because they're not doing what the people at the top want. And so I think the fact that the case is over, I think is good. But I think it still is going to send a pretty negative message to people that, if you're a person of conscience, you try to do the right thing, it doesn't mean it's going to work out well for you.
The government was pretty quick to offer to pay his legal costs in this.
Mm-hmm.
Does that indicate a little guilt there?
Yeah, I think they realize, I don't think it's anything on their part that's because they're wanting to do the right thing. I think it's because they're afraid. Public opinion turned against them pretty badly on this. Anytime you have someone who served the country for a long time, and who is a person of character and integrity, going up against politicians, the politicians are never going to really look too good in that exchange. So I think they back down. They're going to pay legal fees. They're really hoping all of this goes away. But there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, and I think there needs to be a full investigation.
Do you think the Vice Admiral might sue because of the damage to his reputation and to perhaps get the facts out about this case?
Yeah, I think he should. I mean, that'll be a decision for his legal team. But, he's apparently going to be reinstated, but not to his old job. That job has been filled. So I think they should give him his old job back. I doubt the Liberals will do that, though. And so basically he had years of his reputation, his career being dragged through the mud. He could have lost his freedom with all of this, and then they just go ahead and say, "Oh, never mind, it's over." So yeah, I think if he wants to sue, then I think he has a pretty good case to make.
I would think somebody with a chest full of medals like he has, and as you know, in the Canadian Armed Forces, they don't hand out tin very easily. You have to earn, those gongs, as they say. I think that would be very impressive if he decided to sue for libel or slander or loss of reputation and wear that colorful uniform at a jury hearing.
Yeah, I mean, from a PR perspective, I think he was definitely very smart to wear his uniform every time he went to court. And I mean, he's earned it. It's his uniform. He earned it through his service, so he has every right to wear it. And yeah, I think it's the visual contrast is not good. A bunch of politicians and backroom hacks tried to take down a guy who served the country and didn't work out well for the people trying to take him down. But what's so concerning about all of this is that he's a person of integrity, a person who was very high up in the military, someone who had the ability to hire seemingly the best lawyer in the country, Marie Henein, and he was able to, protect himself. But if the government can do that to him and almost take away his freedom and put him through all of this, then what chance do the rest of us have? And that's what I've seen a lot of people on social media saying is, they almost took Norman down. He was able to protect himself. But what chance do the rest of us have when the government goes after us? And, I think a lot of people are pretty worried about that.
Is there anything more on, Trudeau's threat to sue Andrew Scheer for libel? Because, going back, talking with one of my investigative reporters, Bob Mack, and we recall the case where Gordon Campbell was sued for libel for saying something about a union, and he was the leader of the opposition in BC at the time. And the court ruled here that he had limited privilege because he wasn't speaking out as a regular citizen trying to badmouth somebody. He was trying to raise concerns that might be of interest to as the representative of the Queen's loyal opposition. So it was tantamount to him saying it in the legislature where he would have complete privilege. So, wouldn't Andrew Scheer, as leader of the opposition, have the same protection when it comes to criticizing the government?
Well, possibly. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't be certain, but I think the fact that the Liberals haven't gone through with it. What they did is after Scheer repeated his claims and then said, "Oh, yeah, fine, I dare you, bring me to court," the Liberals tried to walk it back and say, "Oh, he already changed his behavior, so we've already won." I mean, they backed off without trying to look like they backed off. But I think the problem for the Liberals is that they would have to, if they're saying that he can't accuse Trudeau of corruption, then they have to prove in court why Scheer is being incorrect, which means they'd have to table documents and they'd have to put information out there. And the last thing they want to do on the SNC-Lavalin issue is share any information. So I think it was someone's idea. They were probably upset and stressed out and angry, and they went along with it and said, "Yeah, we'll threaten to sue him. That'll work." And it failed miserably. So yeah, I think they don't talk about it anymore. They're not going anywhere with it, and I think it backfired pretty badly on them.
Is the Liberal government so panicked now about these attacks on their reputation and reliability and so on that they're ignoring the business of government to deal with these various scandals?
I think so. The problem is our system is so centralized that the government doesn't really have the ability. I mean, they say, "Oh, we can focus on many things at once," and yeah, there is a bureaucracy that does things, but decision making has become so centralized in the government now that if the government's panicking and trying to focus on getting out of a scandal, then I think everything else really grinds to a halt. I mean, the provinces keep going, so that's one of the benefits of having a somewhat decentralized system. But the federal government it's all centralized in the PMO now. So if the PMO is stressed out about a political scandal, then I think just by its very nature, attention and effort and time is going to that, and then it's not going to governing the country.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, do you think the federal Liberals have noticed that all the provincial elections lately have gone conservative, but also the official opposition now in Prince Edward Island is the Green Party? The federal by-election in Nanaimo, traditionally an NDP riding, went to the Green Party. Is this a different wave that's happening here with Canadians? Are we either Greens or Conservatives, but we're not running up the middle?
It looks like it. I think part of it also is the NDP is in big trouble. Jagmeet Singh clearly is just not resonating with Canadians. For about a year now, ever since he became the leader of the party, most of the polls have shown Elizabeth May rated higher than him on predictions of, or on people's preferences, who would be the best prime minister. It's normally Scheer and Trudeau at the top, and then undecided third, and then Elizabeth May, and then Jagmeet Singh. So that already is a warning. Polls are starting to show both of those parties within the margin of error. And now there's, as you said, we're seeing throughout the country, more and more data showing the Greens doing better. So it could really reach a tipping point in the campaign where if the Greens and NDP look close enough, you get a few percentage points of NDP voters switching over. And then I think you'd have a big problem for the NDP, and the Greens could benefit.
Right. Elizabeth May has doubled the number of seats her party holds in Parliament to 2. But there's also a point, too, where you get a certain number of seats that you get official party funding, and that also is pretty important when it comes to funding. I don't think they're anywhere near that number yet, but it must be pretty encouraging for her members to see that.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. I mean, in the first past the post system, the difference between getting, 2 or 3 seats and then getting 30 seats can be, a very small change. And so if the NDP collapses, which looks quite possible, especially in BC, and most of that vote goes to the Greens, then the Greens are going to win a bunch of seats. And then they might pick up a few in perhaps Ontario, some in the East. But, it's not looking good for the NDP at all. And I think part of the problem the NDP has is they're a party that is both, it's got a lot of, really left-wing social activists, obviously, which Jagmeet Singh appeals to. But it also has a lot of, blue-collar union people who are often, in some social ways, more conservative. They want pipelines, they want industrialization, they want jobs being created. The left, Jagmeet Singh, doesn't really appeal to that. So I think the NDP is losing a lot of those voters. They're not going to go to the Greens or the Liberals. Many maybe just won't vote or will go to the Conservatives. So they're losing on that side, and then they go down to 15, 13%, and people say, well, the NDP maybe looks like they can't win, and we like Elizabeth May more. So a few more switch over, and the NDP, I mean, they could be really devastated in the election, and the Greens could be the biggest beneficiary of it.
How are the polls looking right now?
The polls are saying a few different things. I think if you look at each individual poll, you can't really be certain, but it's really the trend that matters. And the trend is that Trudeau keeps getting less popular. The Liberals have been on a pretty steady decline. The Conservatives are doing fairly well, anywhere between, say, about 35, 40%. The Liberals, in some polls, have fallen below 30. And the Greens are slowly rising. NDPs either stagnant or falling. The Bloc looks like they might be a factor, winning a few seats in Quebec, but not too many at this point. Again, things can change quickly. I mean, the election in 2015 changed rapidly. The Liberals went from third to first. But the overall trend is not looking too good for Trudeau, and the big problem for him is both his approval rating, which is very low, his disapproval rating is very high. and the intensity is a big problem for him. So even among those who approve of him, only a very small percentage strongly approve. But among those who disapprove of him, a large percentage of those people strongly disapprove. So the intensity is all against him, and that can be a big driver of turnout as well.
So the next election in October is going to be fought on more than just a pretty haircut and a smile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be very negative. I think his whole Sunny Ways thing, he's probably going to bring that up again, but no one really believes that. He's already said it's going to be the most negative election of all time, which means he's preparing for it to be. I mean, that's a funny way of him trying to blame other people for what he's about to do. But yeah, it's going to be very negative. We've already seen with the fear-mongering, them trying to make Scheer out to be some sort of, white supremacist. And I think the Liberals are playing a very dangerous game, because not only are they going to divide the country more, but they're trying to turn Scheer into such a crazy caricature that just by being boring and somewhat rational, he's going to look better than what they're trying to make him look like. So he doesn't even have to really do that much. I mean, he's boring. He's not an inspiring politician, really. But if they keep saying, oh, he's a crazy right-wing extremist, he really isn't. And I think when people see him in debates and see him on TV, they're going to say, yeah, this guy's kind of boring, but he doesn't seem crazy. And, it's a bit like what happened with Trudeau in 2015, where the Conservatives made such a... And before his image was really defined, so people hadn't actually seen him in action, hadn't seen how incompetent he was. But the Conservatives really made him out to be like, oh, not ready, really negative campaign. And then he showed up in the debates, and he wasn't terrible in the debates. He was average, not great, but good enough. And because the perception of him the Conservatives tried to create was so negative, the contrast of just being average was good enough for him. And I think that's kind of what's happening now with Scheer, is they're trying to make him out to be crazy, but if he shows up and he's just a reasonable, boring guy, then I think a lot of people will be fine with that.
Well, one of the big differences between him and Harper is that Trudeau went out of his way to take selfies with people and let people touch him and approach him, and Harper did everything to keep people away with a 90-foot pole. And he hated reporters. He kicked me out of a photo op because I might ask him a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a reporter, you don't like politicians who aren't nice to you.
No,
does it influence my reporting? I'm not saying it did, but it sure could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scheer seems like he's been a little bit more open in that way, and it's too bad, because, Harper, when he actually did hold press conferences, he's very smart, he's quite knowledgeable, and he actually...
but he also limited the media to 5 questions, and he made sure the questions were asked by his pet reporters, not ones who might ask a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
He really did not like being questioned at all.
No, but, to some extent I can't blame Conservatives for doing that, because much of the media, I don't think you're biased, but much of the media is very biased to the left. I even worked with, worked at 2 student newspapers, and these are the people who end up growing up and becoming journalists and working for all these organizations. They don't think they're biased, they think they're fair-minded, and many of them try to be, but they just tend to be people who are on the left. And so it's impossible for anyone to totally eliminate bias from their minds. And so I think Conservatives do often get treated a little bit worse. And so, again, remember Harper's first campaign in 2005, I guess. No, 2004. He was actually fairly open with the media. He made a few mistakes, and that took him down. And so I think he decided, okay, I'm going to clamp up. I'm going to be really careful and really controlled. And he did win 3 elections after that. So you can't totally blame him. He did what worked. And so long as the media is often biased against Conservatives, there's a bit of a double standard, and Conservatives do have to be a little more careful. But Scheer seems like he's been pretty balanced. He seems fairly open and friendly with reporters. Hasn't made any big mistakes yet.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, we've had another report on money laundering in BC where billions of dollars were put into the real estate business, and it supposedly boosted prices by 5% last year alone. But that money also flowed across the nation and amounted to about $47 billion being put in it. So homes in Winnipeg, Toronto, Halifax, they all could have been the prices influenced by money laundering, and yet the federal government has done nothing to do anything about it. And, I mean, they just could take them to civil court and say, hey, you're a money launderer, give us your profits.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's definitely some pretty deep-seated corruption going on. A lot of this, of course, is money coming in from China. And I think there's, for maybe political correctness, trying to keep relations with China going strong, even though obviously that's not working. The federal government seems afraid to crack down. I think this is something that should be really a non-partisan issue. I mean, everyone has a reason for being against it. The left obviously would be against it because it makes everything, it's basically the elites making everything more expensive. Conservatives should be upset about it because it's, Canadian citizens are finding it tougher to afford homes, and people from other countries are distorting the housing market against our own citizens, which is not acceptable. And just the fact that it's a crime, everyone should be upset about it. So I think the government needs to really crack down. Personally, I think there needs to be a ban on any foreign home ownership. I think anyone who's not a Canadian citizen should not be allowed to purchase a home in Canada. I just think, our property should be for Canadian citizens, not for people from other countries. We can't be letting people come here and distort the market. And maybe that'll cost us some money in the short run, fine, but it'll also create more money when Canadians can actually afford to buy homes more easily and afford to have, larger families, because that's been a big issue for a lot of people. It's tough to start a family when home ownership is so expensive. So I think we need to start looking at actually taking care of our own citizens and not people in other countries.
And Vancouver's become the luxury car capital of North America, more than Hollywood. And you see 16, 17-year-old kids driving Lamborghinis and McLarens, cars that probably cost about the same as a house in Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With new driver stickers on them. Where did they get the money for those cars?
Well, in many cases, the money's from China, of course. And, I think the question is, is Vancouver supposed to be a city for Canadian citizens, or is it supposed to be a city for, is it just going to be a playground for rich people from other countries? I mean, that's a decision we have to make. And I know people, I've tweeted about this a few times, and some people thought it was somehow prejudiced. I don't care what the background of a Canadian citizen is. China, if you're originally from China, Africa, Europe, whatever, I really don't care. The issue is citizenship or not. So if there's rich Canadian citizens, doing that, fine. But if the city is becoming a playground for people from other countries who are coming in, raising housing prices, making it totally unaffordable for Canadian citizens, that's not what a Canadian city is supposed to be about, and that needs to be dealt with.
Also, didn't the Auditor General just do a report about Canada's asylum system for refugees is near collapse?
Yeah, the system's basically totally broken. Every time they try to get rid of one backlog, the new backlog is even worse. And of course, it's because the government, they encouraged it. They're trying to say, oh, we never encouraged it, blah, blah, blah. But Trudeau made that tweet. The government sent a clear signal they weren't going to be tough on people. And so the predictable effect of that is loads of people made asylum claims. And the Liberals spent about 2 years claiming that anyone who was against their handling of the system was somehow racist or bigoted. And then they went and turned around and made many of the changes the Conservatives have been asking for to the asylum system to try to deal with the problem, but never apologized to all the people they demonized for 2 years. And then they tried blaming Harper, Hussein, immigration minister, tried blaming the Harper government for the previous backlog and saying, oh, it's because of that backlog that we have the problem, which is not true at all. So, yeah, it's just been incompetence and hypocrisy all around.
Spencer, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, good talking to you.
My guest has been investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at spencerfernando.com. If you have any questions for Spencer or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.